everyone. I am Michelle with two L's, and I am one half of Forcify Entertainment. I don't have Natalie the Red today, but I do have a special guest with me. I call him the money man of YouTube, but I've got Valiant Renegade. Valiant, thank you for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me. Good to be here. And yeah, it's good we finally got to do this together. I know we've been talking for a while, so looking forward to it. And thank you for having me on.
Yes, well, thanks for coming. Yeah, I wanted to have him on because you guys know that I love supporting theaters. One of my favorite hobbies is to go to the movie if there's a big movie or even just a little movie. I like going to the movies and supporting theaters. And in 2021, we kind of had these streaming wars where you had Disney and Warner Brothers specifically. We're going to kind of discuss more today. Putting movies on same day, same release. Movie goes on HBO Max and goes to the theater. And I wasn't a big fan of that when that was announced actually in 2020 because I knew it was going to hurt theaters, which I don't like because I enjoy going to the theater. And I just think that theater experience, I think you probably experienced that recently with Spider-Man. It's just fun to be in the theater. There's nothing like it. And I don't want to be stuck at home, and especially after the last couple years. Who wants to do that? So we're going to be discussing today. We're going to be looking at just how did this experiment work? Did Warner Brothers succeed by putting movies kind of undercutting theaters and putting all their movies same day on HBO Max? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's ask that question. Did Warner Brothers, did they succeed in 2021 with their same day release technique?
It's kind of hard to say so far exactly because there's a lot of moving parts to this, but let's look at some of the information that we do know.
And
So
that's
to
why I wanted
mhm,
you, because it is messy, because I don't know I can see box office numbers, but I don't
mhm.
see the numbers they're making from HBO Max. So,
Right, and that's the other side of the coin, and in fact, we're not gonna know the last 25% of that story for about another month once their 4th, fiscal quarter report comes out, or at least from AT&T rather, in the next few weeks that would close out the end of the year. So, we know from a subscriber standpoint, HBO Max pretty much throughout 2021 up through the end of the 3rd quarter, which is the last bit of information we do have, was pretty much clipping along at a pace of about 2 million or so new subs per quarter. So
is that
for
good
ex
or bad?
I'd say for them, I think that's good steady growth. So
Okay.
right now, total globally, and there was some information that AT&T kinda let slip deliberately in the last couple of days that seems to indicate that they closed out the year somewhere in the vicinity of 73 million subscribers globally, um, for the year. Now, we'll have the official numbers in the next few weeks. We think that somewhere in the order of about 45 to 50 million of those are domestic, North American, US, and Canada. Um,
Okay.
so, that's not bad. So what we want to see is, did the decision by Jason Kilar at Warner, or, did it pay off to where he said, okay, Wonder Woman 84, day and date on HBO Max, put it in the theaters. Now we're going to do this with the entire 2021 slate. And
Yeah.
that's yeah, and that started in 2021 with Godzilla versus Kong.
And I think that
Mhm.
was kind of, even I could have a little sympathy and understanding for them just finally putting out Wonder Woman 1984 in December instead of pushing it back again. But
Mhm.
it kinda as it continued on in 2021 is when it was like, "Okay, guys, like, this is a bit much. This needs to end."
I think there is some debate that could be had that in the early days of 2021, like running up through the end of April, maybe even into May, that I can understand the quote experiment at that point.
Yes.
But even if you look at the movies that came out, it was a mixed bag. Okay.
Yeah.
You had Godzilla versus Kong, which did almost 500 million, I believe, globally. I mean, that movie did very well. And
Yeah.
now domestically, it did. Let me skip back over to there. I think I had it pulled up. Domestically, Godzilla versus Kong, it didn't do as well. But again, you had at that point almost 40 million US households that could just turn it on the television and watch it
Yes,
and not have
exactly.
to leave.
That's how I did it.
Yeah, and I went to go see it in the theater because I was anxious to get back to the theater. It was the first movie I think I went back to see since the theaters had closed previously. And my son and I, at the time he's about 10 years old, we enjoyed it. And it was nice to go see it in a theater. And
Yes.
but how much better could it have done had it not had an immediate release on HBO Max? I would contend that it would have done significantly better, probably at least another 50, maybe 100 million in the domestic box office, because we know, according to Samba TV, and again, their numbers aren't perfect. HBO knows what the real numbers are.
Yes.
But you had 4 to 5 million households watch that movie at home
Yeah.
during,
Yeah.
the first week or 2. So, I mean, there was a lot of money that didn't get to the theaters, and to a point that I was mentioning, briefly before we started, was the hybrid model for all of these, not just Warner, but the hybrid model is the worst way to go. It's either pick
Yes.
one or pick the other. Pick streaming only or pick theatrical. And the reason is it's not just the production budgets. It's not just the 1 or 200 million dollars that you might spend on a big budget blockbuster film. It's the next $100 million that you would traditionally spend to advertise a film to get people to go see it in the theater. If you're doing a
Yes.
hybrid release, you're basically cutting off a big chunk of business that would go to the theater, but you're still spending that $100 million to get them there. So this was
Yeah.
part of and it was kind of funny as the year went on, as we got into late summer and into the fall, especially, and really as we got up to Spider-Man. Man, I
Yes.
started seeing the Hollywood Trades, Variety, Hollywood Reporter, Deadline magazine that I cite quite often. Some of the authors over there, the writers that I follow frequently, they all started saying the same things that I was saying 6 months ago. And that it was that maybe this hybrid thing wasn't such a great idea, that they should have. And I think most people in Hollywood, or at least most, let's say, critics would call it that, the people that follow the Hollywood business stuff, they kind of knew going in. It's like, I don't think this wholesale everything in 2021 approach is a good idea. I think for what it's worth, Disney did take the smarter approach by doing it piecemeal, looking at one picture at a time and deciding based on the market conditions. I think we can sustain opening a theatrical window. I think movies like Dune certainly would have done a lot better
Yes.
later this
Yes.
year. There's no question. Look,
That's what I was gonna get on is
yeah.
Disney, they at least I feel like Black Widow was kind of the last big movie they experimented with.
Mhm.
You can correct me if there was another big movie in
No, that was
between
it.
that.
They went
Okay, and
45-day release right after that with Shang-Chi.
yes, and then it was like they realized, "Okay, this doesn't make us as much money," and they got smart and went the other route, where it's like you're saying with Warner's, I think 2 movies that really got crushed were and I wasn't actually personally a big fan of either one of these movies, but Suicide Squad and Dune,
Mhm.
and especially Dune.
Yeah,
I
oh,
mean,
Mortal
Dune is
Mortal
supposed
Kombat got wrecked too, and that was
in the
that was a
beginning.
a month out, yeah, in the beginning, but that
Yes.
one was even funnier because it's like I think most people didn't realize at first, "Oh, we can watch these at home," right? So
Yes.
what happened was, Godzilla versus Kong happened, and then 3 weeks later, I think it was, is when Mortal Kombat dropped. And by then, everybody had figured out, I can watch this at home. And that thing, I don't even think broke 100 million globally.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
it
I
was I
mean
mean, now the production budget on it was next to nothing by
okay.
comparison, which was
Yeah.
good. But I mean, it just goes to show what was taking hold. It's not that people were sitting home out of fear. They were
Yeah.
kind of sitting home out of apathy at that point, because it was
Yeah.
just, yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I'll watch it at home. I mean, I don't want to go spending 3 hours in the car and at the theater and coming back home and spend $50, but I've already got my HBO Max subscription for 14 or 9.99 a month. I'll watch it
Yes,
here.
definitely. And as we were saying, I think, who I do feel bad for, Dune was supposed to be this big epic film and it has, such a diehard following from people
Mhm.
that like it. And that one is the one that made the least sense to me of any of them. I mean, that came out in what was it, late October or
Yeah.
November? And
Well, you're right on both counts, actually, because one of the problems with the release schedule for Dune was particularly awful. We had Dune coming out in some foreign territories 4 to 6 weeks before it came out in the States.
yes, that's
Uh,
right.
it was a train wreck. And when you have completely broken release schedules like that, that in and of itself will have a traumatic impact on a movie's
Yes.
overall performance because of things like piracy, or the hype kind of dies away. I mean, when you have big global events like Spider-Man was able to do with all but maybe 6 markets, where Sony actually pulled the movie in those 6 markets, because some new lockdown conditions were coming into play, and they didn't want to release him there with half capacity, which I think was a mistake for them. They should have left him. Japan was one of them. That's a big market for Spider-Man.
Yes.
So point being is that a release schedule like that can have a tremendous impact. But the unique thing for maybe some of your viewers that might not understand this, since they don't follow it probably as much, is that Dune and Godzilla versus Kong, neither one of those were actually produced by Warner.
Yes. Yes.
Warner was the distribution company, but those pictures were made by Legendary Studios.
Yes,
And
exactly.
Warner Brothers had to stroke. I mean, we know for a fact they wrote a check for, I believe it was $225 million for Godzilla versus Kong to buy
Okay.
out Legendary's interest and basically to pay the back end deals out. They would have had to have probably paid something very similar, I would think, for Dune, because
Yeah, you would
that was
think.
going to be a legal fight.
Yes.
They were gonna haul Warner Brothers to court, and try to pull a breach of contract. It's like, wait a minute, Legendary Studios, we're reaping the benefits of a theatrical release, and now you're telling us you're gonna kill it and put it for free on your TV channel. No.
Yeah.
It's like, so anyway, they made good on it. And in fact, Ari Emanuel from one of the big talent agencies out in Hollywood, that was one of the things he said at a Goldman Sachs conference over the summer was, hey, he loved that Warner Brothers day and date thing because they stroked checks to my clients. They made more money with those checks than they would have on back end deals in the theater. He was thrilled, so
So
somebody's
that
winning.
just that
Yeah.
makes you wonder then on the business side of
Mhm.
things, how they could possibly really make money from that.
Warner?
Yeah.
They didn't. The only way is to kind of circle back to where we started with is they had to have picked up. Warner has to be able to look back, or AT&T rather at this point, has to be able to look back at the subscriptions that they got and say, okay, we can track that we got 100,000 or 500,000 or a million new subscriptions for HBO Max the day that Dune dropped or something like that. Or we
Yes.
know that of all the new subscriptions we picked up this year, this is how many people watched all of these day and date releases that we put out there as soon as they dropped or within a week of them dropping. They have that data. Now, one good thing about HBO Max is that they have one of the highest average revenues per user of any of the streaming services. So when I
Okay.
said I'm talking about the true, like, dedicated streaming services with original content. So if you take Netflix, you take HBO Max, you take Peacock, you take Paramount Plus, you take Disney Plus, you put
Mhm.
all of them, you look at all of them, Discovery, put that in there as well. HBO Max generates on average about $12 per user per month. Now,
Okay.
they have two tiers. Of course, they have the $15 a month tier,
Yes.
no ads. And then they have a $9.99 a month, which they brought in May, which no coincidence was exactly when they announced this whole spin-off merger thing that's happening this year with Discovery, because that was a total David Zaslav move, who's currently the president of Discovery, who will be the new president of HBO, Warner Media, and all that after the Reverse Morris Trust merger is over. They're shooting for the summer. So
Okay.
even with that $9.99 plan, they're still making $12, $13 because they're selling ads. For
Got
example,
you.
Discovery, David Zaslav, you can get Discovery with ads for $5 a month. You get all 21 of their channels or whatever. They make $12 per user on that $5 a month subscription service
Got
because of
you.
the ads. Disney, by comparison, under $5 a month ARPU.
Yeah.
They're a fraction of it. So my point is that when you look at Disney Plus and you say, oh, they have 118 million worldwide, and HBO Max has, so let's say that their numbers are right on the money and say about 70 to 73. If you look at the average revenue per user, guess who's actually making more money? It ain't Disney.
Yeah.
It's HBO. So, that trend is going to continue. Now, it's like I've told people, I expect to see subscription rates for Disney Plus increase a good bit over the next few years. I also expect them to see that, they'll introduce an ad-based tier, because again, as they continue to do this, and one thing Disney did right that Warner didn't was they used the PVOD model. So if you wanted to get Black Widow, like you said, you had to
Yes.
pay $30 for it.
Yeah.
So at least they got that, whereas Warner was just throwing them out there for free.
Yes. Well, and you brought up something earlier that I wanted to kind of I guess, end on is
Mhm.
with piracy being such a big problem. What movie was it?
Huge.
Black Widow that was like the most pirated movie of the year. I can't remember. I just heard
Black
it
Widow.
recently.
Well,
Yes.
it shuffled, so they have websites out there that track, what's the most pirated thing of the week. Widow was definitely there for a while, but you can throw pretty much every one of those HBO Max. In fact, I think the Suicide Squad is still up there
Okay.
in one of the
Yes.
top 3 spots.
Yes, because that to me is the biggest problem as far as for money. Again, is
Yeah.
that people are just going to pirate it. Hey, yeah,
You've
you can
you've
borrow
got a
my HBO
clean,
Max thing.
perfect 4K digital copy. All you do
Yes.
is you start streaming, and then if you have a screen recorder or an external recording device like I use for some of my cinema cameras that I do from time to time, I could plug that in, and I haven't done it. I don't do that kind of thing. I really don't. But I mean, I could plug it in and just punch the screen, and I'm recording in perfect ProRes 4K. I mean,
Yeah.
this is what happens now when you do this day and date stuff, and this is, and I had to have known this going in, but that's, I mean, the amount of loss they had to piracy was, it's probably in the billions.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Wow. Yeah,
I mean, I'm
that's
talking
quite a
about
bit of money
across
to
the board
lose.
for everybody,
Yes.
Disney, Warner,
Yes.
Universe, everybody. Yeah.
Got you. I got you.
Mhm.
So, would you say it's probably safe to say, as I said at the beginning, I'm a fan. I enjoy that shared experience of going
Mhm.
to the theater. Would you say that like 2021 was kind of a failed experiment?
For this hybrid streaming model, oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, no question. On all fronts, everybody lost in there.
Okay.
Everybody lost.
So the
You know.
theater is saved.
I mean, oh yeah. I mean, look, this is the theaters. Hollywood needs the theaters more than theaters needs Hollywood. They cannot
Yeah.
continue to produce $200 million blockbuster pictures and then dump them onto a streaming service. It just,
Yes.
the economies of scale just don't. At least not like when you're talking about Disney. I mean, this year Disney had 7 major releases. Each one of those 7 releases had a budget that was at least $150 million, and that
Yeah.
includes the animated stuff, Encanto and all that. You cannot continue to do that because Disney Plus right now is still operating at a loss. They're not making money on Disney Plus yet, folks. They don't project that they will be for another, I think, 2.5 to 3 years at this point.
Mhm.
Um, you can't keep doing that. No, I mean, you can take $200 million and make 10 shows that is going to fit a bunch of different audience gamuts, but you can't put it all into one big battle. I mean, not 7 times a year. So no, they
Yes.
need the theaters, they need the theatrical revenues because remember, once something goes onto Disney Plus, and that's the other thing, is that all these companies with these streaming services, you remember how it used to be? Movie would go into a theater, it would be there for about 90 days. Then it would
Yes.
show up on video rental, or you'd go buy, depending on how old you are, VHS, Laserdisc, DVD, Blu-ray, or now 4K disc, right?
Yeah.
Then it would wind up on Cinemax, Showtime, Stars.
Yes.
Then after that down the road, it would wind up on cable television or network television. Every time that happened, that was another big check to the studio to license those
Yes.
out. That's all gone. So for the
Yeah.
people that went in there when Disney puts Black Widow out there on Disney Plus and they drop $29.95 on that, that's it. They're not that those people are not going to buy a DVD of it. They're not going to pay a rental fee again. They're never going
Yeah.
to buy another it's done. It's one time all up front. So all that downline revenue, the secondary, tertiary markets are gone. And when you're talking about a movie like Spider-Man right now, Sony will be able to turn around, call Netflix and go, "You want it? It's 1.75 billion at the box office right now. We'll give it to you for next year, $200 million. Sign a check." Netflix
And
going to do it.
yeah, I believe Netflix is getting all 3 of the home Spider-Man trilogy, aren't they? Aren't they gonna buy it? I've heard
Sony,
rumors they're
well,
buying it.
I mean, look, people are like, "Oh, it'll be on Disney Plus." Not unless Disney writes Sony a big fat check,
Yes, yeah.
because
Yeah,
it's like, "Oh,
Sony's
well,
gonna
they
sell
made
for
it."
the highest bidder.
Yeah, look, just so everybody understands, Disney owns, or they have, say owns, they have a 25% equity stake in this new Spider-Man movie. Okay,
Yeah,
$200 million production budget, 50 million of that is Disney's. The other 150 of it's Sony. Sony still has full distribution rights. So,
yeah,
for example, if they wanted to put it on Disney Plus, and if Netflix said, "Hey, we're going to give you $200 million for this, we want it," Disney's going to be like, or Sony's going to tell Disney, "Netflix is offering this. If you want to buy it, give us the 150 million, buy our share out." For to put on Disney Plus. I don't think Disney's going to do
yeah,
it.
yeah. Well, yeah, no, this is interesting, and again,
Mhm.
I'm glad, I'm glad as a person who enjoys going to the cinema, going to movies, I'm glad that this failed because I'm actually I don't know about you. I think 2020 brought it out of me. It's like I almost miss going to Blockbuster Video. Just getting out, going or being around
Yep.
people. Like I definitely don't want and I know that's a bit extreme, but at times I feel like we just as people we got to get out.
Yes.
So I am glad in a way that this experiment has kind of failed because again, I just think that you can't get one of the reasons we brought up Spider-Man in this a lot. One of the reasons that was so much fun was hearing the cheers, hearing the
Mhm.
audience. You just can't
Exactly.
get that at home by yourself, and it's just not the same.
I think you're
Uh,
gonna see some movies that are gonna stick with streaming only going forward.
yes, ok
You're
and
gonna
that
you're
makes
gonna
sense for
you're
some.
gonna see fewer movies going into theaters, which is fine. They had too much glut in there anyway.
Yes,
There's a lot of things in there that theaters are sitting on with screens that have 2 people watching it. It's empty, wasted real estate.
yeah,
Believe me, they'd rather have another screen in there for Spider-Man: No Way Home than whatever they're renting out to, Studio ABE with the arty farty film or whatever. I mean,
yeah,
it's just and it makes more sense that way. So
yes,
I think there's gonna be, a bit more judicious take on what movies go to theaters and what movies stay exclusively to streaming. I think the budgets going forward now these are all things that are gonna take 1, 2, 3 years to come to fruition really, because that's how long
mhm,
it takes to really produce a film and get it out
yeah,
to market at least a couple of 2 or 3 years. So it's gonna take a little while, but I think over the next couple of years, you're going to see a change. I think when we look back, we're gonna say, "Wow, in 2019, we had 2,000 movies hit theaters," or whatever it was, and now we're averaging half of that.
yes, gotcha. Yeah, that
Mhm.
that makes sense. Well, thank you very much for coming on. Again, guys, you can find him at Valiant Renegade. He is there on YouTube doing awesome. And he is always, if you want to know like the nitty-gritty details of finances and money in entertainment, he's your guy. He's the money man, as I said. So thank you for coming on. Is there anything you want to plug while you're here?
No, if I guess, probably by the time this video's out or shortly after, I've got a new one coming out that's gonna cover, specifically the Disney box office this year. So I know we wanted to talk
Okay.
about the Warner Brothers stuff, so I've got one specifically on the Disney side of things. We're gonna go into more detail because Disney's year is as ugly as Warner Brothers was. Like I said, Warner kinda made a decision going into the year. They knew they were gonna take a few punches in the gut doing
Yeah.
this, but it was a calculated decision to try to boost HBO Max. Disney, on the other hand, it hurts more. Just trust me. It's
Yeah.
it's not pretty. It's
Yeah.
not
So,
pretty.
so
So,
definitely
that'll be coming up.
Yeah, so definitely check that video out, and again, thank you so much for coming on and
Mhm,
breaking that down for us.
mhm.
Appreciate it. And all of you, if you are not yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Also, give the video a thumbs up. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to be a force of light. All right, bye, guys.